Here we go. Hello, everybody. We're back at it. Welcome to another episode of A Respectful Conversation. I hope you're doing well. I'm your host, Katie Muse. And today I have a very special, funny man.
Hello, my name is Mike Ragone. I'm a funny man. I'm here to talk about sitcoms and my favorite in particular, Frasier.
Mike, why Frasier?
So I've been thinking about that for a long time. What attracts me to Frasier is the fact that the characters are written really well. They have, and the show is like able to kind of balance the really dramatic scenes with the really funny scenes in a really powerful way, which I think is something that kind of roadblocks a lot of other shows. And at the end of the day, I love it because it's just about like friendship and a family reuniting and kind of figuring itself out again.
Yeah. I have not watched Frasier in a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like I went through, when I was like from middle school through high school, I went through different phases of like watching certain shows before I would go to school.
Yeah.
And I feel like Frasier might have been one of those, like along with like Family Matters and like Will and Grace and Ellen.
Yeah.
And
all
so
classics.
Yeah, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I feel like Frasier might have been in there somewhere. Like I know that I've watched it. It's just I haven't watched it for a long time. But I remember it being a mellow vibe of like I don't remember it being a sitcom where it's like maybe so much like physical bits or like ha 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 like gotcha kind of jokes. I remember it being more uniform and very like 90s like beige tones.
Yes, absolutely. And actually, I actually wrote down on my talking points, I want to talk about like the set and how that like the whole kind of atmosphere of Frasier it really reinforces the tone. And that's kind of the genius behind it. I think you're right, because Frasier really isn't like laugh out loud, haha comedy like Seinfeld is, for example. See, that's a show, and this is where that show is genius, because that show is based on the comedy. It really has nothing to do with the characters. There's no continuity in between any of the episodes. It's just about being funny. And that's why those characters are able to be horrible, like terrible people. But we like it because they don't get rewarded for it. And I think it's interesting about Frasier is that it's not bigger, because it was coming around the same time as those like bigger sitcoms, and it was very popular. It ran for 11 seasons. Oh, wow. And I believe won more Emmys than any show up to that point.
Who else? Kelsey Grammer, right? Of course.
Yes, Kelsey Grammer was Frasier, and he went through, and this is something that kind of I think might stain a little of the Frasier's past, is that Kelsey Grammer was dealing with a very serious substance abuse problem during the time of Frasier. There was an episode wherein Frasier's brother Niles, who is a psychiatrist just like Frasier is, has to take over Frasier's show because he's going to like some kind of psychiatrist convention in Aspen or whatever, right? So the whole episode is based on Niles, but the only reason that happened was because that week Kelsey was in rehab, and he was only able to film the first scene because he was in treatment for the rest of the time.
Oh, wow.
Absolutely.
That's wild. Cool. So can you enlighten me more on the element of family in the show?
Yes. So Frasier takes place in Seattle in the year 1995, I think. No, 93 it starts. In 93, Frasier Crane was a character that began on the sitcom Cheers, which ended very shortly before Frasier began. Cheers was a sitcom, well beloved, starring Ted Danson, about a bar in Boston. And at some point, Ted Danson's character goes to a psychiatrist who happens to be Frasier. The two strike up a relationship, and he becomes one of the crew that hangs around at the bar. At the end of Cheers, and before Frasier starts, Frasier and his wife that he met on Cheers, Lilith, who's played by Bebe Neuwirth. I think that's how you pronounce her last name. But they were both on the show. They got split up. And Frasier decided to move back to Seattle because he needed a lot of space between him, his wife, and his son. So he goes, and after a series of events, which leads to his to Frasier's father, Martin, who is played by John Mahoney, falling in the shower, Frasier takes him in. Then they have to hire a physical therapist to help Martin recover, who is played by Jane Leeves. Her name is Daphne, and she's from Manchester. So you have those three, and they all live in the same apartment, which is something that Frasier does not like but learns to love. Frasier has a brother named Niles, who's played by David Hyde Pierce, and the last main character is Frasier's producer of his radio show, Roz. Frasier has a radio show, and he on it, and that's his job. And on it, he's a celebrity who people call in to get advice for, and he gives it to them on the air.
Okay, thank you for refreshing my memory. Also, I was not aware that I don't think I've ever seen an episode of Cheers, so I didn't know that Frasier's a spin-off of Cheers.
It is, yes.
That's badass. That's cool.
Mm-hmm. They wanted to get away from Cheers. They didn't want it to be we have the same Cheers audience who's gonna watch this new TV show expecting the exact same thing, because that's not what it was going to be. Yeah. So from the beginning, they separated him from the land, the state that the show took place in, all of the landmarks that were significant to him, the characters that he had a relationship with, and really, really starts him out on his own. Yeah. Now, every once in a while, there's 4 episodes in which Cheers characters make reappearances. It only happens for a bit in a couple of episodes. And as it's explained in the book, those were kind of just promotional things. After 9/11 happened, there was a really big drive to get all these your old favorite stars together on the shows, and Kelsey Grammer went on Wings for a couple of episodes, and he won an Emmy for it. And so it's just it's crazy to think that he's been playing the same part for 20 years too. Yeah,
that is wild. And to still have that be the defining character of your career,
for real,
is that's wild. I wanna know now. Then I guess is a good transition from that last point you made of a bit more about Kelsey Grammer.
Yeah.
And his do you know any more about his struggle while filming, or did his issues develop during filming, or was it already? Do we know?
Well, it's funny that you mentioned that. So Kelsey Grammer was notorious, for being an alcoholic. Alcoholic, really, and with really bad substance abuse issues too. And he would show up to the episodes of Frasier and record it. He'd show up absolutely trashed, already drunk, right? And they had no idea how they were going to work with him. However, legend has it that the minute the camera turned on, he pulled it all together and just became Frasier. He wasn't drunk. He was giving these performances, even the really dramatic performances that I'll admit made me cry a couple times. He just pulled them out, and then once it was off, he would just go back to drunken Kelsey. It's incredible.
That is truly okay. That's funny because there's so many instances with so many actors of you think Daniel Day-Lewis kind of vibe of wow, the way they just get immersed in the character. I'm always amazed when actors are able to do that, to just switch like that and suddenly be the character, especially when you're inebriated.
Yeah, for real. It's crazy. Well, some people, there's a weird phenomena with comedians. The legendary comedy producer, writer, performer Sid Caesar was like this. They said that he didn't really have a personality outside of when he was filming characters. Like if he wasn't playing a character, doing a part, and even like doing an accent, he could like there wasn't like a person there. They need like a character to go into. Sid Caesar was giving I think he accepted an Oscar or an Emmy or a Tony or something like that, and he went up to accept it, and he just couldn't speak the words, and he couldn't do it right. So Mel Brooks from the audience shouts out to him, "Do it in German," and so he puts on a German accent and goes through it immediately. So it's just like, yeah, it's just like you change when you're so dedicated to that, like to playing the character, you change because you're not even you anymore.
That's wild. Yeah, because I always have thought on that every once in a while, especially when like I get into a mode of watching a few comedy specials on Netflix or something, of just realizing how that is like the archetype of a comedian.
Yeah.
Is to really be like struggling like emotionally. And it's not the case for like all of them, but like a lot of them have a really I feel like dark perspective, although maybe that's kind of changing, I don't know, but like even like I think about how John Mulaney has like one joke in one of his specials about like when he was working at SNL that he was like doing coke and everything, and like you look at the man and you would never dream that he's like the type of person to do that kind of thing. And it's just so like I don't know, I've always been curious about that connection of like, which I guess that's part of comedy, is like pointing out the stuff that we don't always notice or that we can like laugh at.
You're absolutely right about that. John Leguizamo, the very famous actor, I was watching an interview with him once, and he said that the reason that he got into comedy and into performing and stuff was that if he was able to make his father laugh, then his father wouldn't beat him. And that's how he was able to, like, it's a lot of the time when you have someone who's really funny, it's because they're funny because they need to be. It's how they survive. It's how they kind of exist. And how like it's a coping mechanism. It really is, because like you know, it takes a lot of strength to be able to laugh at like your own insecurities and your weaknesses and your fears and stuff like that. And comedy is great because you can do that and then have people kind of like not only feel for you, but also give you that like that kind of satisfaction that you're looking for by like validating the fact that your jokes are funny, that your coping mechanism does work, and and we enjoy you for that, you know?
Yeah, to receive some kind of like you said, validation or like love or just appreciation in general seems it's particularly valuable for all of us, for sure. I feel funny now that I called you a funny man at the beginning. And now we're talking about how like funny people are sad. Are you okay, Mike?
So much subtext.
Oops.
One of the oldest quotes about comedy and how it's written is that comedy comes from tragedy. Tragedy plus time equals comedy, right? So like and it's how people get through adversity.
Watching SNL recently, the recent season, and when the comedians who are like there's not like Adele, when like the actual like comedians were on, like I think it was like Chris Rock, Bill Burr, Dave Chappelle, like Bill Burr and Dave Chappelle is like in particular really like went in on like the just shit that's happening. And there was like times where there were parts of it where I was like, haha, like, yes, I agree, haha, I give you my laugh. There were times where it was just like, oh, like that's not, I don't, like the too soon moment, I guess.
Yeah. Comedy is the perfect way to discuss these kind of things, these kind of really difficult to deal with issues. In Dave Chappelle's, I saw this clip on Twitter. It was recently. He was telling jokes. Some lady in the back, I think, yelled, "All lives matter." And he stopped, and then he explained to the crowd very seriously what it's like, even for a very famous black person to live in America under the extremely corrupt judicial system that we live under. It's just it sits with you, because unlike a lot of like tragic stories where it like can get so sad that you don't want to like interact with it, the subjects get so hard that you really can't, like, you don't feel comfortable interacting with that kind of thing. Comedy is really cool, because if I tell you a joke about, like, a very topical joke about something, or you watch like Colbert talk about like any kind of political stuff, even if you don't like really understand what it's about, you're getting it. You're like, because comedy makes you think. You need to think for a second before you get a joke, and that's when the ideas really sink in with you.
You know, when you just eat out of habit and you don't like actually appreciate the food, or like you're just listening to music in the background and you're not actually like listening to the instruments and the lyrics and everything. Like comedy is the same kind of thing of like, it's not something that anyone can just do. Like it's not like a simple, easy thing, and it's an art, really. But we forget about that because we can just easily be like, haha, and then like call it a day, when really it's like, it's impressive, like, to be able to make people laugh, especially about the dark stuff. Too, I want to hear your thoughts then about other sitcoms. Okay. Of like, I know the classic two that are pinned against each other are Friends and Seinfeld. Would you even pick either of them?
Seinfeld. Friends is like not good. Friends is okay. They were so popular that, and everyone liked the characters so much that they didn't really care about the writing at all in Friends, I feel. I feel like a lot of that show's humor comes from like the catchphrases that the characters say, or instead of like having it be they say funny things. In Seinfeld, it's all jokes. It'll be like set up joke, set up joke. You know what I mean? Every single one pays off because it has that influence, and it has that like that look and that focus specifically on comedy. That's why Larry David said he didn't want to have the show have continuity at all, because it's not about continuity. It's about funny, and you don't need the first to have the second. Friends is the show that you watch if you kind of just want to, you need some like, not garbage TV, but just kind of pick yourself up TV, I suppose. Yeah. Inoffensive. You're going to be safe watching it, and it's a good way to kind of distract yourself from whatever issues you have. Because I don't think it really like ever dares to go so super deep into an issue.
Yeah, that's a good point. Safe, I think, is a good word to describe Friends. And so then it makes sense, because you sound like you're definitely in the camp of not like no continuity for the sitcoms, or like more often than not, like continuity is too tricky, which I get. I just think that for all shows.
Yeah, if it's done well, I think it's done well in like How I Met Your Mother. Give like an example, but I can't really think of any more off the top of my head. You know what has really good continuity? Family Guy. That show, for some reason, has really good continuity and like characters that will come back because of what happened to them in the episodes, but like seasons before.
Yeah.
It's rewarding to an audience member to sit there and be like, hey, I remember him.
I'm a very like character-driven person of like, I like, like my favorite show when I was growing up was like Glee, and it was because it was like a group of characters that were like basically a family, so like Friends basically fits that category. Whereas like with Seinfeld, like you said, they're all like crappier, and so so like I couldn't really connect with any of them. Whereas like with Friends, everyone could be like, oh yeah, like I'm like Chandler or something. Also too, I'm begrudgingly saying Friends because my dad literally just has like TBS on, which plays Friends all the time.
Oh, good.
And it's the same thing, like I said in the Star Wars episodes, where for some reason like I catch the same parts of the specific seasons, and I'm just like, I'm tired of seeing never mind. People, I've seen Friends before. I'm tired of seeing like Ross's wedding with Emily and he says her name. Like I've seen it so many times. And the biggest like hang up, and I watched The Good Place recently for the first time.
Oh really? I've been meaning to give that a shot.
Oh, it's so good. It was a pleasant surprise. I thought it was going to be dumb, but it was and smart. But he one of the characters talks about like he like watched all her friends and he complains at one point about the part where like Rachel and Joey or Joey has like a crush on Rachel and then they spoiler. I know I literally I was watching it on Netflix where like that was my show I was watching for a while and I stopped around that point because I was just like, this doesn't make sense. It just seems like you're just throwing characters together for the sake of like, throwing characters together. Shout out to Phoebe for being the only one that like didn't actually have a relationship with any of her friends.
No, seriously.
Because like I was just like, this is just, and it's just sad. It's like painful to watch Joey have to go through that because you know, especially with the fan base at the time, you know that Rachel and Ross are going to end up together by the end of all of it. So you're like, why are you even doing this? It's a waste of time. And it's
and it becomes frustrating to watch. Yeah. That's what I love about Frasier. Frasier doesn't waste time. There are key big moments in the series, but none of these big moments, except for Roz's pregnancy, comes out of nowhere. Spoilers for Frasier. So after the first 3 or so seasons, Niles, who has been married to a woman named Maris is, and I think one of the best examples of this, you know, like the neighbor in Home Improvement where you never actually see him, you just see his eyes. Maris, you never see her ever. She is like not even like her arm, no part of her is ever visible on screen. And she's only ever described as a very, very rich, snooty, upper crust, very extraordinarily pale, like to the point where by other characters she is described as almost not looking like a human being.
Wow.
So like, and through this we see Niles's development. We see that he is so unhappy with this woman and he leads like a very like pathetic and lonely life. And then on the second episode of Frasier, Niles comes to Frasier's apartment in Seattle for the first time to visit his dad and to meet Daphne, the physical therapist. And Niles falls in love with her immediately. And that becomes the running joke between the two of them for the rest of the series, that Niles is like head over heels in love with Daphne and she doesn't know about it. Because he's just like so awkward, it just doesn't like make sense. And that doesn't get resolved for another like 10 seasons.
Yeah.
And so like, and that's giving them good motivation. You set up a good motivation for Niles's entire character arc, which is realizing that he wasn't in love with Maris anymore. Then gaining the courage to confront Daphne about it. Then getting with Daphne and the end, and then their like story is over. Like Frasier is so driven by the relationships of the characters instead of the characters individually, which is my favorite part of the show entirely. I think it has the best final episode I've ever seen of the series ever. It's almost a recreation of the first scene of the series. And like to the point where the extra that brought in Martin's like disgusting chair that messes up Frasier's like really nice apartment is the same actor who played the same extra who moves out his chair in the end of the series. And it's in the beginning, like Frasier doesn't care about the chair. He thinks it's a hideous, disgusting blot because it's like, it was designed to be hideous. It's puke green with brown stitching up between it and like crumbs and duct tape all over it. It's the perfect contrast to what Frasier thought his life was going to be. And he hates it. And throughout the shows, it gets stolen. He lights it on fire. He throws it off the roof a couple times. But in the end, it becomes the chair itself becomes that link that he has with his father.
Yeah.
When in the end his father gets remarried and moves out of Frasier's apartment, Frasier makes sure that the guy is careful with the thing, with his chair because of how important of a bond it kind of had between the two characters. Like you see the characters like really growing to know each other, to not only like get to know each other, but to like learn how to love each other again after being estranged from him for so long, and how this one character returning can improve everyone else's lives so much just because he listened to them, just because he took their problems seriously. I don't know. That's the beauty of Frasier. It's just such like at the end of the day, the episodes can get so complicated, which really adds into the humor. But at the end of the day, it's just about a guy who's trying to help his family while he searches for love. And he doesn't gain that. He doesn't complete that goal. He never finishes that arc, but like he didn't really need to, because he discovered that no matter what, he's always going to have people that love him. One more thing I want to talk about Frasier.
Yes.
And this, I think, is my favorite part of it. Is very theatric. It's many times when I'm watching Frasier, it will seem like I'm watching a play. Specifically a play like an open door French farce, where
totally makes sense.
Yeah, there's I forget what episode it is. There's at least one farce episode per season, and there's at least one episode involving Frasier's son and possibly ex-wife. So the farce episodes are so good because all of these actors came from theater. You could tell based on their acting style, how they like deliver the lines and say the words. They're all theatrically trained. And so to have like an episode like The Ski Lodge, where Frasier, Niles, Daphne, Martin, Daphne's friend, who's very attractive, and a ski instructor, all are staying in the same ski lodge, and all of them think that they're like in love with the other ones, making like this giant love like octagon, right? And Martin has a cold, so he can't really hear anything because his ears are all blocked up. So he'll say like the wrong things and add fuel to the fire just to make the misunderstanding even better. And then all the jokes just come from them like opening the doors and going into like random rooms, and it's like nonstop comedy, just like the second act of like a good play. And it as people who come from theater and are that's like our thing, it's really rewarding to see something like that done so well on TV, where we have to like rely on the certain camera angles. You know what I mean? It's really good cinematography to make that kind of thing work on TV, I think.
Yeah, I think you really summed up my impression that I had from memory of Frasier in my head, and why I always felt like probably because I was watching it when I was young also. I don't know how I was supposed to connect to it when I was like in elementary, middle school or whatever, but like it just had that when I say like the like tan, like beige 90s feeling, I think it really is that of like and how you talked about how the setting is so clear with they're like in this like rich like upper crust apartment and everything. It really does feel like a set for a play, which like is usually just what sitcoms are if you think about it, but like that one feels like it feels more like refined, and
it's a lot more of like a direct reference to it, where I feel like in all kinds of shows that's kind of going away, and that's why I love the 2-camera sitcom versus like something like The Office or like Modern Family or something like that, where it's more contemporary, and like I like it. I like the laugh track. I'll say that. I like laugh track comedies.
Hot take.
Just because it's a very hot take, and I understand that it is like doing the work for me, but like that's what I want out of a sitcom. I just want to sit there and turn my brain off and laugh at like Neil Patrick Harris have like wearing a scuba suit to pick up women. You know what I mean? It's just like, or Frasier like losing his mind because every single actor messes up for his radio play, which is happening live, and all the sound effects go bad. It's rewarding to see these things happen, especially in Frasier, because Kelsey Grammer plays that part so well of like the pompous idiot that can not only like really take an insult, but like also really think and be like a real human. It's kind of almost like there's two Frasiers when you watch the show, where there's Dr. Frasier Crane, who is the egotistical, narcissistic maniac who is, anytime his name is attached to something, he obsesses over it and like it has to be perfect, which ends up always being his downfall. Or he could be Frasier, which is just like the normal Frasier who goes on dates with women and tries to like connect with the rest of his family and not have to be so over the top and pompous. He can just be like a normal guy, like a normal person that you think that you could like, you know, talk to or trust a little bit. And it's just, it's this split in the way that the character works that really makes it special. Like when he's on his game, especially in the episodes where he does both at the same time, where he can switch back and forth between Dr. Frasier Crane and Frasier when he needs to. And seeing him get so overwhelmed with that, it just makes, it's just like a perfect comedy cake. It's delicious because you got all the good ingredients in there for a good character. I don't know. He's one of my favorite, like, just characters, just because there's so much craft and it's like such a carefully written and understood character to make someone like that work and still be lovable and likable. And so I'm able to root for them when something good happens.
Do you want to plug anything else, Mike?
I have nothing to plug. I'm cool. Oh, okay. I know. Follow my Twitter. It's at Popon, Popon 777. My Instagram's the same.
Nice. Go follow Mike. Cool. My turn. Listen to A Respectful Conversation on SoundCloud and Spotify. It goes up every Sunday around like noon, unless I forget. Sorry. And then there are video episodes up bi-weekly on Famous Secret Agent. Yeah.
Yeah, please subscribe to Famous Secret Agent.
Yeah, that too. Always.
Absolutely. Great YouTube channel.
And then there's two, I keep forgetting to plug this. There's a Facebook group for Respectful Conversation. I have links in there to the website, and the website has an application which Mike filled out to be a guest on the podcast. So go do that too.
It was very easy. It took like 2 seconds.
Cool. Thank you, Mike.
You're very welcome. Thank you for having me on the show. And thank you all for listening.
Yes, thanks for listening, everybody.